record. All right. Hi, everyone. It's Leslie Seidel. Welcome to today's podcast. I am so excited. Today, we get to hear from Claire Shamilla. Claire is an energy healer who lives in New Zealand with her life partner and their 2 young children. She believes that light bringers and healers have a powerful role to play in creating a future for humanity that is free of fear. So since 2010, she has worked with the universal realm energies to overcome a lot of fear and anxiety in her own life, and now supports light bringers to overcome obstacles and to step into their highest purpose and infuse more light through the world. So welcome, Claire. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, Leslie. Welcome. Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah. So I am so excited to hear your story and to hear from, I know you now, but I'm curious as to hear your journey to get to where you are.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up. Like, how was religion and spirituality handled or talked about or not talked about when you were growing up?
Yeah, I really grew up without religion. We went to church a few times as a kid, and that was, just a bit of fun. We kind of just did the kids club thing. And it was really, my brother and I we did a lot of playing in the backyard with the trees and the earth. And I feel like that was the essence of my spiritual upbringing. It definitely wasn't any kind of structured religion that came into the play. And then I guess it was, through my teenage years, I guess there was a lot of, anger, I guess, inside, a lot of kind of turmoil. And it's when I really started I completely shut off from that side of me that was really connected to the earth. And, of course, you don't believe in fairies when you're a teenager. Well, at least I didn't anyway. And I think coming through that real anger and disharmony that I felt as a teenager, because our family kind of all split and separated, it started to get me down the path of spiritual development. And it started off as personal development, and then moved more and more into kind of spiritually who I am. That was really the pathway. And I didn't intend on going down that path, but it just kind of, I think it was part of my purpose in this life. I believe it was, I'm here to really do this now. So that's kind of how I got to where I am today, I guess, in a nutshell.
So when you were growing up, you were very connected to nature, right? But it never was taught, like a religion or a spiritual life wasn't talked about or attended to in any way in your family?
Not at all. No talk of spirit. There was, respect and values and things, but there was it was all just very physical living.
Nice. And then what happened so often, which is, so your family had some upset. And so in your teenage years, you started to feel the effects of that upset.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like because I didn't have any further understanding of who I was beyond my physical self, I became very self-destructive, alcohol and partying and just not looking after myself at all. Just because I didn't realize there was anything, I guess, beyond the physical life, so I searched for answers in all the wrong places. Yeah.
You were in pain and you needed to find a way to handle that pain, and no one was giving you that.
Yeah, and I guess, my life on the outside with all my friends never looked like I was in pain. It's looking back that I realized the disharmony that I was feeling, because we'd go out and we'd have a great time and, we'd drink, and it was all fun with friends, but it was that, just that searching, I guess, that was starting from inside, because I think it naturally anyway as kids, even though I wasn't brought up with the understanding of spirituality and soul and spirit, you know, kids are naturally connected to it anyway. And so that's where I found the magic in the garden and things, because I could feel the magic of it, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So I had that innate knowing, but then I guess because it wasn't nurtured, and it's no blame on my parents, they were just doing, you know, all they knew how to do and how to live based on what they were taught. But you know, I shut off from that side of myself because it wasn't seen as real and wasn't accepted, and you didn't really talk about imagination after you got to the age of, you know, 10 or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really resonate with this idea that it's all about the external, right? So you said like you were
Mm,
going out and partying and you had all these friends, and so externally you were being fed and attended to, and it was the internal that was not being attended to. And
exactly.
yeah, and then
Because I didn't
that's
know who I was internally. I guess that's the real piece of it. Like, I knew myself in relation to the outside physical world, but I didn't know myself in relation to who I was internally. Like, that felt quite empty. And so it causes us to search outside of ourselves for answers and for fun and for enjoyment when we can't feel it within. It's
I
what I know
love
now. Of
what
course, I didn't have that perspective at the time.
I just love this idea that your spiritual seeking was because you didn't know yourself internally.
Yeah.
Like that is, I've never heard that put that way, and it just rings so true to me.
Mm.
And it's a really beautiful way to look at it. And so you were this teenager, you were uncomfortable, and then you started seeking answers, and the answers that you sought created more havoc, right? As they
Yes.
do,
Yeah.
as they tend to do. And
Yes.
then you started saying, okay, this isn't working either.
Yeah.
I need to do something different.
Yeah.
What did you do exactly? Where did you go? What doors started appearing or opening for you?
Yeah, well, I guess I started as I came out of the teenage turmoil. I started, I suppose, trying to find answers of who am I inside, and um, unknowingly started to figure out how to fill myself up from inside. Because, you know, when it's that external fulfillment, we do it, we get it, but inside is still hollow. So we need more and more and more. So I went traveling, went overseas, America, and lived in London for a couple of years and traveled through Europe, and it was so much fun. But again, it was that very much partying, you know, heaps of fun, no responsibility, which was great. Like, that helped me to find a certain piece of myself. That was when my spiritual journey kind of, I guess, or spiritual seeking and spiritual exploration really started. I've always loved like going to little crystal shops and just feeling the energy and, you know, looking at all the cards and the books and the crystals and all that. And I knew there was something in that. And I did my first Reiki training when I was in London, which was really beautiful. But then I was in London at the time of all the bombings, the train bombings and all those, 2004, 2005. And so at the same time of me starting to find this inner sanctuary, the external world was so filled with fear. Like, you clutched onto your handbag every time you left the house, and you looked around all the time for what could possibly be a bomb or a terrorist attack. You know, my external world started to not feel safe at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess and then I came back to New Zealand, and that's what really sort of propelled my drive to find how to find more this inner peace within myself. And of course, it helped to remove myself from that situation of the terrorist attacks and things, and come back to what I knew as my homeland, which helped. And I did, I just became a addict to do any kind of spiritual development, or personal development courses, and learning how I could help others with the techniques, and try and get rid of some of this fear in the world.
Yeah, so this again is another theme that comes up a lot. So you got to experience other cultures,
Yeah.
which really opened your eyes to new stuff,
Absolutely.
right? And then, I mean, did you just come across Reiki? I mean, I know people who have never had Reiki, right? So how did you end up
Mm.
learning how to teach Reiki? If you're this, so now you're a teenager, or not a teenager, you're a young adult, you're traveling the world, and then somehow you ended up learning Reiki, which we can describe if you want, just to make sure that everyone knows.
Yeah, so Reiki just being this connection with universal light energy and ways that we can use this energy with ourselves and to heal ourselves and heal others. And I don't know, I try to think back about what was it that drew me to Reiki, or it was almost a no-brainer situation, almost like my soul decided to put me into the course. I don't
Mhm.
remember any kind of cognitive thought of, oh, I don't even know if I knew anyone that did Reiki back then. I
Mhm.
honestly don't know how it started, but it's amazing, isn't it? The spiritual breadcrumbs, I call them, and we just follow it. Oh, that sounds good, and that sounds good, and it's like this yes that comes from this deeper place within. It's often not even a rationalized yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I just remember starting that Reiki class, and the teacher just saying, hold the ball of energy in your hands. And I felt like I was like this ancient wizard. It was so cool. And now, of course, it's kind of normal to me to do that. But it was, just such a cool experience. And I started to reconnect with that little girl who knew magic was real, which was awesome.
That
Yeah.
is beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the path is often, in my experience, and from what I'm hearing you say, is this like it just kind of happens.
Mm.
It's synchronicity. It's young,
Yes.
and it's like I don't know how that happened. Wait a minute, how did I go to that class?
Yes.
So and then what happened? So now you got a taste of the magic and the feel good, and it doesn't
Yeah.
have the price, right, that the other felt good. And
Yeah.
please tell me if I'm putting words in your mouth, but this is what I hear you saying.
Yeah. No, right on. Yeah.
And so now you're like, I want more. I want more. And
Yes.
so what was next for you?
So I came back to New Zealand, and a little while after that, I met Jeremy and my partner. Now we've got two beautiful children, as you mentioned at the start. And it was, it still took me a while to start to really, I was just still seeking and trying to find answers. But it really was about healing myself first.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I feel like it took me a while, because all of my, I've been one of the typical help everyone else first and then sort myself out later.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the courses I started to go on when I came back to New Zealand were, learning modalities to help others,
Mm-hmm.
because that takes the pressure off needing to help myself. Let's
Yeah,
help everyone else first.
but beautifully, you have to help others while you're doing this, right? So there's a
Yeah.
great setup there, right? The
Yes.
motivation is I'll be of
Yes.
service, and
Yes.
yet you can't be of service. What I have found to be true is you can't be of service
Mm.
until you yourself are clean, right? Until you yourself have healed some of these things.
Yeah.
And in the service you do heal. I mean, is that your
Absolutely.
experience?
Yeah, I mean, it was the motivation to help others that took me along to these courses. And
Mm-hmm.
little did I know that I was going to be working with myself with the practices. And,
Yes.
so I learned EFT. I continued on with my Reiki training and became a Reiki master teacher. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I learned processes as Psyche, which is psychological kinesiology, ways of working with subconscious beliefs and removing fear. So using muscle testing to identify what the beliefs are. So it just kept evolving and kept evolving. So as I would learn each process, and I'd be like, wow, this is amazing, and I'd be doing the techniques on myself, but I still wasn't aware of the importance of doing it myself first to be able to work, actually really work with others. And I started my little practice, I think in about 2008, somewhere around there. And I was working with other people with the processes, and I was getting great results. Like, it wasn't like I couldn't help anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But it was this unconscious path of my own self transformation at the same time, which is quite beautiful to reflect back on.
Mm-hmm. So what I hear a lot from the healers that I know, right, is a lot of what I'm hearing. And then you hit a burnout. If you don't take care of yourself, the giving and giving and giving to the void, right? And then you have nothing left, and you're laying on the floor saying no more, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I never got to burnout, which was like, I think I was just actually constantly in a state of burnout, but it never got to that point of like, complete surrender for me. I guess I've always got this motivation from within to just keep powering on. It's kind of part of the New Zealand culture where we're like, it'll be all right, get on with it, push the emotions under the blanket and just keep charging on.
I know that one.
Yeah. And so my daughter was born in 2008. So actually I started my practice prior to that. But when she was born, I started to really use the techniques that I'd learnt very strongly with myself, with her, like leading up to her birth. I was very aware of how my thoughts and emotions were affecting her and were going to be affecting the birthing process and my ability to mother her and to be connected with her. And so, we were talking before the call about how children can just be such a motivation. Well, they have been, for us, of propelling us even more strongly towards along our spiritual journey. And so, should be crying, doing all the different hard stages of parenting, and I'd be sitting there doing my processes with her, with myself, and that was really amazing. And then when I was pregnant in 2010 with my son, was when it wasn't burnout, but it was this extreme state of fear that I found myself in, regardless of all the work I'd already done. It was this energetic fear that just had a grip over me. And it was at that point that my whole, like the actual spiritual side of things really kicked in. I think prior to that, I'd been doing sort of obviously with the Reiki and some energy work, but within all of that, I still viewed myself from that physical perspective rather than, now I love the quote from, the Wayne Dyer, where we're spiritual beings having a physical experience, not the other way around. I had been operating from the other way around. I'm a physical being having a spiritual experience up until the point of being pregnant with my son. And, there was the looming 2012 prophecies of the world ending and all this chaos. And I was silly enough to read about all of it on the internet and just, I was like, I cannot bring up children in this world if it's going to be if it's going to end, like, well, it just threw me into so much fear. And that's when that real shift really happened for me.
So how would you describe that real shift?
Well, I guess it was just this heightened point of, so the way I see it now, when energies come up and we recognize energetic patterns or beliefs or anything that we're like, oh my God, I don't want to be experiencing this anymore, and this, I need to do something about it. I actually see that as a really good thing, because it means that we're starting to create some separation from it, because there's the us that's viewing it or starting to view it, and then there's the old self that's at play. And it still sort of feels like it's us because we're feeling the emotions and everything, but it's a good thing because we're starting to have separation between it, where we're in a powerful place of choice where we can decide if we want to keep playing. For me, it was like, do I want to keep living with this in this fear, or am I going to be doing something with it? And I really chose at that point. I'm like, I drew the line in the sand. I'm like, I'm not raising kids in this, even if the world falls apart, I refuse to be in the grips of this fear anymore. And I knew that it wasn't safe, or it wasn't good to be growing a child inside myself. I had enough of a mind-body understanding to know that it wasn't going to be great for my baby to be growing in a body that was holding on to all this fear. So yeah, that's when that shift really happened.
So what I hear you say is that instead of you've been experiencing fear and there were all of these things that were kind of like coming at you from the outside, kind of, I don't know that you would use this word, but in some ways a victim to outside circumstances. And then all of a sudden you realized you had a choice in the participation in it, right? Like, I don't know if that's accurate, but it sounds like you realized the fear wasn't like a fact, like I need air is a fact, right? And so, and it became like, oh, I have choice here. I can live a different way. And how can I do that? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah. And it actually felt like I'd taken on all of this fear of the potential of the world into my physical body.
Mm-hmm.
So even though it was happening outside of here, and we're still seeing elements of this, like we're talking about before, playing out in the world now, don't we? With this in-the-face energy of this hatred and this separation and just humans hating humans for no good reason, really. But we carry this in our bodies, and that's what it was. I was like, okay, I'm living within this world. Stuff may or may not happen, and I realized, this is all just potentialities, and it might not happen. But I wasn't willing to carry this fear in my physical body anymore, and in my emotions and my thoughts. But I realized that there was this I that wasn't ready to, and this self that wasn't willing to live in this way anymore. That's my light. That's my spiritual self saying, you don't need to carry all of this. Move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the same time, good friends of mine who I'd met through Psyche, Jeremy and I went and lived in Melbourne for a couple of years in Australia, and they started channeling, and they started channeling these beautiful energies from source, and it was their teachings that really were absolutely perfect for me at the time. And they, I remember reading their first book after I'd had my son at birth care, the birthing center where I had him, and just reading it, just going, oh, I'm home. Like, it was just this memory, this deep resonance of who I truly am. So, we're talking about not knowing who I was internally. So I'd always reach for external satisfaction and fulfillment, but it would never truly fill me up. And so, yeah, then I started to actually truly find me, and it's been this journey of being, filling myself up more and more and more and more, growing in my own strength. And it's always an unfolding journey. I think I'll always be, kind of growing in this capacity probably for lifetimes. But yeah, it's just this life, I think it's just really been this absolute turning point.
That's beautiful. And so how would you describe it today? Like, so it sounds like, what I hear is, it sounds like you found a path in a way that really speaks to you and really fulfills you. I mean, is that true? Is that
Yes.
is that how you would describe? Yeah.
Yes.
So why don't you tell me, like, how does your spiritual life show up for you today? Like, what does it look like?
Well, it looks like everything. I guess it's because now I know that I am who I truly am, is spirit, living this life through my physical, because I've made that real shift from previously thinking I was physical, first, spiritual second, grasping for kind of spiritual experiences. And now I really have this very strong knowing within. I feel so fulfilled within. And then my life is a set of experiences that gives me choice, whether, from within. So it's very empowering to be at this place that I'm at now, and just to have have the magic back again, have this connection with nature and energy, and just it's a really amazing place. And it I feel like everything I do is a reflection of who I'm now resonating as, who I'm knowing myself to be. Some days I do kind of fall back into more of a physical identity,
mm-hmm.
but with this new knowing, I always have choice. And I think once we start to pay attention to the light of our soul, it keeps kicking us back in the ass to, reunite more and more. So yeah, there's always those little ass kicks from my soul saying, come on, time to let go of that one, time to let go of that one. But it's amazing to have processes now that help me to just dissolve things at that level of the energetic self. And there's no more kind of peeling back the layers. It's like, now I've got the process just to go, it's not a frequency match anymore, and really move more to this resonance of my light. And that keeps getting stronger and stronger every time I do.
So a lot of what you just said sounds hard to grasp, right? In some ways for someone outside of yourself. But what I hear, because you're not a monk sitting on the mountaintop. You're raising two small children. You're in relationship with your partner. You do have a job. Like, you're in the world.
Yeah.
And so what I heard you just say is, like, I'm in the world doing the thing, like, nothing can get me more angry than potty training my 3-year-old. I mean, this is not, you want to see a spiritual life. That's the work right there. Yeah. And, how am I at 3 a.m. with my son? And then in those moments, coming back to, no, this is actually a spiritual path.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, like, we were talking, where I live is in fire, and not there's fires surrounding where I live, and so there's a lot of smoke, and it's very easy to get into a space of smoke is in my way, it's hazardous. And instead to come back to, like we talked about, like, I'm rarely grateful for fresh air. And I sure am now.
Absolutely.
I never knew that I would care so much about bowel movement until my kid is potty,
I know. Or talk so much about it with your friends.
Right?
Yeah.
No one cares. And and I mean, is that what you're saying? Like, in the grocery store, when someone cuts you off or has 20 items and the 10 item only, right? That's where the things, the places where I still get stuck show up, and I have an opportunity to be of service, to be kind, right? I mean, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's living life as a spiritual practice.
Ugh.
So, all of these moments, especially the ones that piss us off, give us the opportunity to go, who do I choose to be in this moment? And sometimes we do get really cross and angry, but the key is to let that be okay, like to take the judgment out of it, because and just to bring in more curiosity, because the more we judge ourselves for getting shitty, or for for being what might not be seen as a spiritually aware person, if we judge ourselves, it really holds that energy in place. But if we just go, oh, that was an interesting way I dealt with that, maybe I could have dealt with the situation better, or when we bring awareness into our actions and in the way that we're living, we can get such beautiful insights. And then next time that situation happens, we might choose to deal with it in a different way.
Mhm.
You know, we might take a deep breath and smile at our kid who just will not go to the toilet.
Mhm.
And, you know, make different choices. And this is where the thing is, you know, we're spiritual beings in a physical body, but we're not here to just be spiritual beings. We're
Mhm.
here in a physical body for a purpose, to be both. And
Mhm.
so this is really this learning how to live as both, that
Mhm.
is the most fulfilling part, I think. Because if our spiritual journey did take us to a mountaintop where we meditate all day and we don't have any interactions with other people, how is that helpful for anybody? Like it vibrationally, it's helpful because, you know, we might be all love and light and it helps vibrationally with the earth. But it's really through these everyday connections with people that we change others' lives and we change our own. You know, life becomes so beautifully reflected back to us. You know, next time the person cuts us off, you know, in the supermarket or on the road, maybe we smile at them and they go, they're having a shitty day, and someone smiles at them and they go, oh, that's so nice. It
Mhm.
changes their day, you know. So it's actually living these practices the most powerful way to do it, I believe.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the
Yeah.
mountain. I do believe that we need the monks on the
Yeah.
mountain. I agree with you
Yes.
there. And my spiritual life, you know, on a day-to-day basis in the world
Mm.
is also vitally important. And I think, you know, I have worked with people on the spiritual path for so long, and there are times when they'll, you know, there's always inevitably a moment when they look over at me and I'm ranting about something that
Mm.
is very wrong and not supposed to be happening. I am very right and feel
Yeah.
warm and righteous. And they just look at me like, well, how are you so angry? And I was like, oh, like this is not about becoming perfect.
Yes.
That's the fallacy out there. Like, I am
Yes.
spiritual and therefore nothing affects me. And there's like that spiritual bypass of
Mm.
life. Like, oh, I'm just holy now. No,
No.
I'm
That's
human.
denying so much of life if you're just sort of pretending.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the thing that changes is that is I believe it's at a deeper level where we come to the space of, you know, generally every day we're living in this frequency of love, but
Hmm.
we're still allowed to have temper tantrums if we feel like it. You
Yeah.
know, we're only just coming out of this time of a very separated humanity, and still, you know, there's a lot of this highlight of the separation now in our world. You know, it's like you were saying before the call, this real contrast between light and dark. But we have choice,
Hmm.
and so, you know, we don't have to get sucked into it and overcome by this fear or this anger or this hatred. And it's sometimes it's just the smallest of interactions that really make the most difference. And doing it from this kind of this deeper knowing place, because we always return to that place eventually.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, this what just came forward for me was this thought of like it feels like when I'm mad, when I'm frustrated, when I'm angry, um expressing, like really going after the thing that makes me mad, being frustrated and angry is going
Mm.
to relieve it.
Mm.
And I do need to express it. So it's a really nuanced experience. Yet the reality is the more I go after that which I am mad at, the
Mm.
more it feeds it, right? The more
Mm.
angry I get, the more righteous I get. And it's in this fine line of feeling the experience, having the experience, and allowing it to be, and coming back, you know, keeps coming forward, is it coming back to the breath, right? Coming back
Mm.
to spirit, coming back to the center, and
Yeah.
getting yet again back on the meditation mat,
Mm.
you know? And is
And
that
awareness is such a powerful piece in there.
mm,
It's, you know, because when we're aware of our actions, aware of the world is just, and even our physical, our responses are just feeding back to us what
mhm,
is the next piece to move through and release.
mhm.
And so it's not a bad thing. And even if we do go on a rant for 3 days or whatever, at the end of the 3 days, you go, oh, that was interesting. Become aware of who you were in that situation, how it was playing out, and give yourself that love and that compassion to help you to return, and without that space of judgment.
Yeah, get back on the horse. Let's do it
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, which is hard, right? That to me is a massive spiritual practice, to
Mm.
get back up off the mat and say, okay, what's next?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But and the more that we do it,
Mm-hmm.
the easier it just becomes to return to our light, to bring in that awareness, because our frequency changes. So we're not resonating with experiences that trigger so much anger or frustration anymore. And we see that our life outside of us eventually does transform and change in reflection of who we're being. Mm-hmm. So that's the nice piece eventually about it. But it's that starting that is the real, when the time is right, our soul will just keep nudging, and eventually we won't be able to ignore it for much longer.
Yeah, I really see it a lot of times as like the first day of a workout, right?
Yeah.
Like that's so hard to get there. And then, especially day 3, right? And it's so hard. And if I think about my spiritual life as a muscle that needs to learn how to be used, and the more you use it, the more you say yes to this path, the easier it is to do it again. Is that what you find?
Well, yeah, because when you start to return more to spaces of just this inner fulfillment and this inner peace, which is then overflowing into the world around you, you want more of it. Mm-hmm. And when you have disruptions in your life that just really aren't happy, you're wanting more and more to return to that space of the inner calm and the inner peace. So what can you do to return to that space? And so I think having a set of processes that help to return you to that space of inner calm and ease really help. And then the more that we can just when we're in this space of joy, happiness, just keep putting our attention on that as much as possible, because where you put your attention, what you put your attention on grows and manifests. So just keep coming back to this love, coming back to the love all around us. Like when you look into your son's eyes, and I saw your post on Facebook the other day, and you're like saying about how your son just totally lights you up. Mm-hmm. But what we often do is we put all of that love in somebody else, mm-hmm. and we don't realize that because we can feel that love for them so strongly within us, that's who we are as well. And so that's one of my favorite spiritual practices is, looking at my kids and just going, oh my God, I love you so much. And then feeling that love within me and going, I am this love too. And it just in an instant melts me. I think our kids, that they're little spiritual teachers.
Oh yeah.
And when you can recognize that that's you too, then, you flow more love to them, and they so effortlessly flow it back to us. And we're just building this beautiful frequency for ourselves. So it becomes easier to return to when we build it and build it and build it. Like seeing beauty of flowers in a garden or the ocean or the forest. We feel this majesty of the world around us. And, we can feel that in us as well when we just turn our attention inwards and really appreciate that we also have the same beautiful resonance. And I think that's this real journey. We can see so much hatred in the world, but it's not to just totally turn a blind eye, but it's to be in this empowerment of choice through that and choose to build this frequency of love within ourselves so that we can have these changes in our lives.
Yeah, I work so hard with so many people of this idea of self-love. And it's the new catchphrase. You'll see it everywhere in marketing all over the place. And what does it mean to feel, experience, or have, or do self-love, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard to describe. And what you just did was so beautifully described that.
Mm.
That this is how we love ourselves.
Yeah.
And that loving ourselves is vitally important to the world, to ourselves, to the world, and this is how it is done.
Yes,
Right?
because when we love ourselves, we're not going to go and, you know, be horrible to our neighbor or create wars. Because it just, why would we? You know, when we love ourselves, we can so much more easily love others. And that's why, you know, I talked about earlier, I didn't realize that it had to be self first. That it was my own journey just as much as it was for anybody else. You know, I had no idea, but now I see so clearly that it's my spiritual practice to keep returning and growing the space of love within me. From all of the amazing beauty around me and the amazing relationships and friendships. And, you know, even though there's a lot of struggle in the world, there's so much beauty as well. And when more and more people can feel that love within themselves, that's when I feel like world peace will be a possibility.
Beautiful. One person at a time.
Yeah. You know, but if you think about the ripple effect, it's it doesn't have to take long. Because the people that are sort of struggling and at war with each other, they're just unknowingly playing out old patterns and fear and old beliefs, and it's not who they truly are either. So, you know, everyone's on this journey of return, and the more that we can just do this work ourselves, it helps other people to remember that, oh yeah, that's my journey too. And so their lives begin the change.
Nice. So one of the purposes of my podcast is to hear other people's journeys, right? I love that. I think this is a human path.
Yes.
And so so thank you. And I also really feel strongly that a spiritual life is lived and embodied and practical. And you've given so many of these, like, this is how you do it, right? And then I would love to hear a little bit about your work. So if anyone resonates with what you're saying, you know, for me, my teachers and the practitioners and all of these, you know, how you just randomly found Reiki have come to me from going, I don't know why, but I want to know more about that person. And so I'd love to hear what your work is. All of this is going to be in the notes for the podcast. You will have ways to get in contact with Claire. You have ways to get into, but I want to hear what you do. What is your work right now as it is?
Thank you. Well, I'm so inspired to really work with the light workers and the healers of the world who really feel called to a purpose. And they can feel the purpose. They feel who they're supposed to be in the world and what they're supposed to be doing. Or maybe they're not quite clear on the what yet, but they can feel the who. They feel like they've got gifts and a voice to share in the world, but the fear is holding them back. And so I really love to be able to work with people to overcome the barriers of the fear, overcome any physical obstacles as well, because often fear can manifest in physical ways within the body as well when we've held on to it for a long time. So that's really my light that I love to share with the world is being able to help people to move through that the blockages of that fear and the doubt and the anxiety when they sort of come to think about stepping into this next bigger self, you know, any areas that they're keeping themselves small. I love to help to just dissolve that for them so they can really feel this grandness and strength of themselves to then be able to really stand so fully in the light that they are and share that gift with the world. And you know, this is this ripple effect that we all do in such beautiful ways. So the more we can just move beyond our own limitations, the easier that becomes for us, and the more we're able to light others' lives through this resonance of the light that we are. So I offer energy healing sessions where we talk about what's happening, and we tap in and we call in the energy to really work with people, integrating the balance of the higher self, the physical self, so that they can stand more fully in this light without this kind of shaky ground that, they step out once and then they hide for 2 weeks, and then they might do one more thing and then, no, it's too scary place.
Mm-hmm.
And then I really get a lot of intuitive messages from the energy that I work with. So I help them to really understand what is their next step to take. So it's really beautiful experience of collaboration and synergy that we work with together to really help, move to this next step by step.
That's beautiful.
Mm.
And I also want to, I've worked with you personally. I've had the honor and the privilege, and I just want to say that you don't have to live in New Zealand.
Yes.
You do have to work with New Zealand time zones, but you don't have to work in New Zealand. You don't have to live there. So I do want to say that this is available worldwide, and it's available to anyone that would like to experience that and feels called to do that.
Yeah, thank you for adding that piece. I don't, my home is my office, and I connect with people from everywhere in the world. Most of the people I work with are in America, actually, because the time zones work really well. Like when it's school time here in New Zealand, it's kind of after work time in America and things. So it's really good. And, when I call in people's energy, it's there, in an instant. They're like, whoa, I traveled fast over the other side of the world. So, so everything's done remotely. But through the internet, through Zoom. And so we can see each other's face and, have that kind of personal connection as well. We can talk through things.
Nice.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing your life and your story and your path with us. I really just appreciate it. And is there anything that you would like to say in closing? Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Thank you so much for this time, Leslie. It's just been such a joy to share this time with you and with your listeners. And I just want to, invite people to start to notice the beauty and the love that's all around them already. Go out into the backyard or go and sit around the dinner table with your family and just notice and appreciate the love and all of the amazing richness that is already all around you. Even if it doesn't feel like it, there's always a way that we can go and find so much beauty in the world, and then feel that within yourself, because that's who you truly are, within this physical body, and your life will start to really transform when you can start to really embody this beauty of the earth that we live within.
Nice. Thank you so much. And for everyone out there, of course, the notes will have how to get in contact with her and also some highlights of this podcast. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a blessed day.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.